Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. As a recovering people pleaser, Cathleen Burse knows all too well what it's like to let her self-care go to the wayside. So when she decided to start a blog on self-care, she really was just looking for a way to communicate what she was learning and implementing when it came to setting boundaries, taking time for herself, recharging her batteries, and along the way, she received amazing responses from her readers, and this encouraged her to create her membership group, Self-Care Bestie. Listen in to learn how Cathleen pivoted her skill sets and created a celebrated community of women who are wanting to live their best and most authentic lives. We also talk about why showing up authentically and consistently on social media is important, how to create a community, and how to get started with creating a membership group. And it's working. She's helping even more people with accessible and budget-friendly options for mental health. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to have Cathleen Burse on the Therapy Show today. Kathleen is a licensed clinical social worker in private practice up in Connecticut, and she has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Miami University and a Master's of Science in Social Administration, also known as social work, from Case Western Reserve University. She's been practicing clinical social work in a variety of settings for 10 years and has been in private practice, specializing with adolescents and women for the past 6 years. Along with her private practice, Kathleen runs the blog Self-Care Bestie, where she's passionate about providing an affordable, time-saving alternative to therapy through free resources, live Q&As, monthly workbooks, and so much more. You can definitely find her on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and her blog, Self-Care Bestie. She's married to Matt, and they have 2 young boys. And you guys recently became long-term foster parents of a beautiful baby boy. That's really, really exciting. And what amazing work you're doing on so many different levels.
We love it.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here once again.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. So Kathleen, I think it's always really fun to start with the question of how did you decide to get into talk therapy, or in your case, how did you pick to become a social worker?
So it kind of came really easily for me because I was always the friend in high school that all my friends came to with their problems. They wanted advice, and I was like the go-to, and I loved it. I really cherished that I was the person that they could count on and come to me with their boy drama and their girl drama and all that stuff. So I really decided early on, end of high school, that this is for sure the career path I wanted. I love being able to help people.
Oh, that's really cool. It's interesting. Do you feel as though you've had that skill set since you were young?
I do. Yeah. I think I was I know it's weird, but I think it's kind of born into it. It just seems really like a natural fit for me.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I do believe that a majority of talk therapists are born this way. We are born to want to help people. I think people can be drawn to our personality, and I think that's really cool that you recognized early in high school that's something that you wanted to do. How did you pick social work over the other talk therapy professions?
Yeah, so I asked my academic advisor in college because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. And actually, social work wasn't something I was that interested in. I was thinking I really, really wanted to do marriage and family counseling. And so, but she suggested I do social work because she's like, there's just so many more possibilities out there for jobs, and you can do all these different things. It's going to open up a lot more doors for you. So I was like, all right, okay.
That's cool. I would agree with her.
Yeah, I definitely have found that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, so for those listening who are wondering, which area should they go into? Should they go into social work, professional counseling, mental health counseling, marriage and family counseling, psychology? There's so many different avenues to become a talk therapist. And I was in that same space too, but I went the marriage and family track. And I think mainly because that's really what was offered at the university that was close by, because I made that shift kind of later in life that I wanted to do this work. But I agree with you. I think social work is, if I could do things over again, if my professors are listening, they're probably like, what? But if I could do things over again, I would go that social work route, because you're right. It's just, there's more opportunity. It's more varied. There's more you can do with that, and you can I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot more opportunity out there. So I think it's important that we mention that for the folks who are listening that might be wondering, is this the field for me? And how do I decide which profession to go down? So thanks for sharing that, your experience. Okay, so I wanted to bring you on the show because I am fascinated by talk therapists who are taking their skill set and are pivoting it and doing something unique and different. And I'm a big believer in passive income and creating passive income. And a lot of therapists that I talk to say, well, we charge that hourly rate. That's what I can bring in. I get stuck. Sometimes I can't raise my rates, or insurance only will reimburse me at this rate. So I talk to a lot of therapists about, well, what about taking your skill set and finding another avenue to use it? So when I learned about your story, I was like, come on the show and share, how did you come up with this? And yeah, just like tell us how you did this.
Well, thank you. So I really, the same as you, I was like, it doesn't seem right to me that as therapists, we're really locked into this dollars for hours scenario. And I know that I'm in a couple Facebook groups for therapists and things like that. And I would hear this over and over again. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try to do that exact thing, pivot and use the skill set for something that would get therapy interventions and coping skills and encouragement, the same as I would do for a client in my office, into the hands of women who, for whatever reason, either feel like they don't have time or money for therapy, or that they want to use as a complement to the therapy that they're doing in their hometown. So I really wanted just to be able to make the therapy resources available to more people. I feel like, although I believe everybody should go to therapy, it benefits us all, and no matter what stage of life we're in, I just know that there's so many people who are either resistant because of stigma, or they just, for many reasons, like they don't have the time or the money.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. How did you come up with your niche?
So it really was born out of what I needed to hear. So even the name Self-Care Bestie is exactly what I wasn't doing in my life, which was self-care. So, and I really wanted to be seen as a friend to people, not just a therapist. I wanted to be seen as a friend who is a therapist instead of the other way around. So I really honestly knew that I had 2 young kids at the time, and I was running my practice, and I just was so overwhelmed, and I was not practicing what I was preaching with my clients. So I finally decided, you know what, I need to start focusing on self-care, and I love to write. So I started writing a blog about self-care, and that's kind of how everything initially got started, was just me writing about what I needed to hear. And then I just started getting this response from other women who were in the same boat and could relate. And that was really encouraging.
Wow, that's really cool. I love how you created a program based on your own desire and your own need and what you were struggling with. I think that's a huge clue right there. Yep. I do. I think that's a huge clue for therapists. You know, what are you, we're so good in our work of telling our clients or our patients self-care, self-care, self-care. And then we often put our self-care on the back burner. So I think that your program is probably applicable for all kinds of people. I mean, would you say so?
Absolutely. Yep. That was my vision, was just that as many women as possible would, I always talk about myself, my struggles as a recovering people pleaser. I talk a lot about perfectionism, and I talk about these issues that are kind of, I know in my personal and professional experience, common to a lot of women. And so I just wanted to put those resources out for more people to be able to experience at a very low cost too. Because I don't think that mental health should be cost prohibitive, but often it is.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between how you present yourself in your group or in your program as a friend who is a therapist versus being the therapist? What's the difference in there for you?
That's such a great question. I love humor, and I honestly just want everything to feel casual. I just want people to feel comfortable. I think in my experience as a private practice clinician, like, rapport is the most important thing. And so I really wanted to give people that right away in the group, to break down walls so people would feel comfortable sharing in our community. And so I go live in our group twice a month, and my face is there. They hear me, they see me, and they get to know me. And then I get to know them. And I think that's really cool. And one thing that I have really wanted the community to be about is a two-way street. So I am investing in getting to know them as much as they're getting to know me, which is not something that you typically see in a therapist-client relationship.
That's true. That's very true.
This episode of The Therapy Show is sponsored by my favorite fitness apparel, Zaya Active. I recently discovered Zaya Active when I went looking for high quality and premium workout clothes. Just like those luxury store and catalog brands, yet I wanted a budget-friendlier price tag. I love this brand because number one, I live a very active lifestyle. I hit the gym about 5 days a week, plus I love to go for runs and long walks, which I consider to be my very important self-care and podcast listening time. Plus, the endorphins I get from my workouts keep me in my happy mental space. The clothes stay put, I'm not constantly pulling on my leggings or tugging on my sports bras, and they accentuate me in all the right places. And number two, when I work from home, I love to be comfortable in leggings, also known as yoga pants, and a tank top. Plus, I can transition to running out the door to pick up our girls or run errands while still looking put together in my athleisure styles. My favorite workout leggings are the light and tights, and my favorite everyday wear are the everywhere pants. I literally wear them everywhere, every day. I can even wear them to business meetings or client consultations. I can dress them up or down easily. Want to learn more? Head over to lisamustard.com and click on the Activewear page. You can learn all about Zaya Active, the mission, the clothes, and see if they are a fit for you and your active life. From weight training to running to Zumba to yoga to CrossFit to bar to walking to tennis, Zaya Active has you covered. And don't forget about the active men in your life. They have an amazing men's line, plus clothes for active kids too. That's Zaya like papaya active. So see my site for all the details.
Do you find that it's the boundaries, are they harder or are they easier in the self-care bestie?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. It's such a good one. I honestly think that because it's not actual therapy, it's easier to have the more casual approach to things and have less of a boundary situation going on. It's actually a really cool thing that I get to share more of myself personally inside our private group than I do with like just the average blog reader or a person who's stopping by my Instagram. So I think for so far it's working out well, but I definitely know that there are a few therapists who look at what I'm doing and they're like, wait, what is that? Like, is that too much? But so far it's been great.
I do. Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that it's working well for you and for this model. I remember going to a seminar, a workshop last year, and the whole idea of therapists being on social media and, you know, where do you draw the line and the boundaries? And it was a lot of discussion in that group. And I came away in this place of confusion, like even more, you know, how do we show up on social media? How do we set those boundaries? What's the difference between like somebody who is in self-care bestie versus a patient or a client in private practice, you know, and do that, the two ever cross? Did like your patients know about self-care bestie?
Yes, that is such a great question. So in the beginning, I did not want them to. I was like, no, my Instagram, my social media, what I'm doing there is not for my private practice clients. But then what I found was more and more people were finding me like in my local area online. And so that I was like, okay, what am I doing? You know, does this work or is this not working? And what I have found is that it works. People want to know, I believe, women want to know that a therapist is a human being with struggles just like them. And so while we're not going to talk about what's going on with me in their session, I think that they do like to see snapshots into my life or know about that we're doing foster care or things like that. It humanizes me. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I think that's the benefit of social media for therapists is that it can put us not as the expert in someone's life, because that's not really what they need. What they need is someone to journey with them and someone who they can feel like will validate them and get them, but who is like them. I think it's interesting how many clients, and I used to, you know, dig my heels in about this when I was coming out of grad school, that men wanted a man therapist and women wanted, you know, I'm like, why does it matter? We're all trained in it. But I'm like, or they wanted, you know, me to be a parent to understand their parenting problems. And I got so, you know, kind of offended by that early on. And now I'm like, now I understand that what you really want is just to be able to see a little bit of yourself in me. So I think that's a cool thing about it.
I think so too. I like how you brought that up. I think that's something that we don't really talk about too much because we know we can work with pretty much anything that comes our way because we're trained and we have the skills, we have the techniques, we have the theories, but so much of it, like you and I have talked about, is that relationship is that relationship there? Because if that relationship isn't there, it doesn't matter. And people want to relate. They really do. I mean, relationship relate. I can see that. And I'm the same way. When I came out of grad school, I felt the same way. Why would you want a male? I'm just as appropriate. I can help you. But really, you're right. It's just the human experience. I mean, more than it is the clinical experience. So I think that's really cool how you're able to take your skill set and what you're good at and have found this other way of helping even more people. And I love that, because you are getting mental health out there and it's cost effective. And I think that's just so cool. So how does your program work? What happens in this group?
So on the first of every month, everyone who is a subscriber gets a workbook, a digital workbook delivered into their inbox. It's a different topic every single month. So this month, we're talking about what it looks like to be a successful woman and what gets in the way of that and how to overcome those kind of obstacles. Next month in May, the issue is going to be about motivation and willpower and how to increase those. And so we vote on topics in the private Facebook group. So each prior month, the community votes, this is what we want to hear about. And then I create a workbook. And then I, get that into their inboxes on the first of the month. And then twice in each month, I go live in our group. Once is basically to go over any questions or concerns or things that have come up based on the topic of the month. And then usually the other is just, kind of another additional class of like something that I'm learning or something that I'm applying with clients in my office or something I feel will be helpful to the group based on the conversations that have been happening throughout the month.
That's awesome. Oh, I love how you have it set up. It's like a monthly subscription, and you get on the first of the month, you get the workbook. And then I like how you space things out and keep people engaged. That's really cool. Is it just you moderating the group, or do you have help?
No, right now it's just me. We're a pretty small but mighty crew. But yeah, so far it's just me.
That's awesome. Awesome. So can you share a little bit about, where do you see this going? Like, what's your vision for Self-Care Bestie?
So my vision is just to get this in the hands of as many people as possible. I mean, I'm so passionate about accessible mental health care. And I just know I live in Connecticut right outside New York City, and it is cost prohibitive for a lot of people to see a therapist, and more aren't taking insurance. So truly just being the need of, especially young women out of college or young moms, to have something that they can tangibly do for themselves every single month, that they are prioritizing self-care and that they are learning and just kind of investigating themselves a little bit. I think we just so often don't take the time to do that. So I guess my vision is just that many, many people will have access to this and that they will be benefited because they're prioritizing self-care.
Awesome. That's really cool. And how do you market yourself? How do you get the word out that you have that Self-Care Bestie?
So I basically use social media. I have a blog and I also have a podcast. And those are the three things that I do just to kind of get the word out. And yeah, I mean, I just love doing all of it. It doesn't feel like cumbersome to me. So I'm on social media a lot.
Yeah, I hear you. And I know a lot of therapists are hesitant to promote themselves on social media. And so I do believe that is changing. I do see that shift happening. I get asked a lot from other talk therapists about social media. Do you find yourself kind of talking to other therapists about how to present on social media?
I do. It's so funny that you say that. I actually just got asked to speak on a panel in my town next week for women entrepreneurs who, I'm like, it has nothing to do with therapy, but it has everything to do with social media. Because one of my former clients was like, oh, you need to talk to Cathleen. She knows about social media. She does it all the time. I'm like, that's so funny. It's never a hat I thought I would wear, but I was like, sure, I'll come talk about that. But I have therapists who I work with in my office who are like, now, how do you do, what do you decide to do on Instagram? Why are you going live? What should I go live? And those kind of questions.
Oh, yes. You've paved the way. You're showing them.
I'm trying.
Well, yeah, you're showing them how it's done. And I think you're so consistent and your content is just really good. And that takes time to evolve that. And I think that a lot of times we want to jump in and be a pro at it, but we have to give ourselves that time to learn. And it's a skill set. I mean, it's truly a skill set. And I love what you share. It's always so fun to see your posts and just good value. The value you give for free is incredible. So I can only imagine what's going on in your group and what you're sharing. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Do you do any other coaching on the side? Like, anything like that in the future for you, for maybe helping other therapists launch a group or a membership group? Have you thought about that?
I'm open to that. That's so funny that you say that, because I've often thought about what would it look like if I am getting asked these questions about how to do social media or how to show up in an authentic way as a therapist on social media. would that be something I'd be interested in? I haven't really explored it too much yet, but I definitely think it's something that excites me because I'm like, I know what it has done for me in my practice. And I literally went from, a struggling private practice to starting to implement these things on social media. And I'm like, right now I'm turning people away sometimes because I'm like, I don't have enough time to see all these clients. So it has been a game changer for me for sure. And I definitely think down the road, I'd like to help people with that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to keep an eye out for when you do that, because maybe we'll have you come back and talk about getting something like that started. So let's say I am a therapist and I'm curious about, I think I would like to start a membership group, or I'm curious to learn more. What would be some tips that you could give talk therapists out there to kind of get the ball rolling or get this started?
I think the best advice is just to start, is just to do it, because I think so many times it's easy to get hung up waiting for things to be perfect or waiting for everything to get in order. But I honestly didn't know what I was doing when I first started doing this. And I thought, if there's a few people who I could help with this, it'll be worth it. Who cares if it's not really profitable? And then what I found was just by doing it and then asking for feedback again and again from the community, I always felt like I was still serving and helping, and they were benefiting. And I was like, wow, okay. So I honestly, it encouraged me more to keep showing up the more that they were responding with, yeah, this is helping and this is really good for me and this is what I want to hear about next. So I think the best advice would just be start and then get feedback.
Okay, awesome. And you have a blog, selfcarebestie.com, and that's where you started sharing content and value, right? Okay. Gotcha. So would you recommend that talk therapists consider a way that they want to present value and start in that direction?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's one of the things that helps humanize you. It's one of the things that helps people know. Because I think, again, it doesn't matter if you're doing this in office or if you're doing online coaching, whatever. People are paying you money for a service. And it's not, that's a resource that is limited in most people's eyes. So I think if we're asking for them to give us money for this service, then I would want to know as much as possible about that person, to know that I'm not going to waste time with a person who I don't click with or connect with. And if you can save them that trouble of just knowing that in the first session, I already feel like I know you a little bit, or I already feel like you can help me because I read this blog post that you wrote about anxiety and it spoke to me. I think it's hugely important for therapists to be showing up with value online.
Awesome. I agree 100%. Do you ever do Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives?
I do. I'm really consistent on Instagram. I go every Thursday, I go live on my Instagram and I call for live questions and ask people to join me if they're so bold, or I just do questions like that I get in my DMs throughout the week. And Facebook, I'm a little bit less consistent, but I'm doing a lot of Facebook Lives as well.
Where do you feel like the majority of your members come from? Instagram or from Facebook?
I think Instagram. And I think Instagram is where people are more likely to follow you more closely, at least in my experience. I feel like that where people are like considering buying from someone online is more likely to be Instagram, at least in my experience.
Okay. That's interesting. To think about that in my own work. Because I'm much more of a Facebook gal. That's just a personal preference. But but when you have an Instagram, somebody who purchases on Instagram, they have to go to Facebook to be in your group, correct?
Yes, they do. Okay. So that's true. And that's the thing. I'm like, when's Instagram going to catch up and get a group going? Because
I know.
There's some people who aren't on Facebook. And so they don't have that benefit of the group. Not many, but one or two.
No, you're right. A lot of people I talk to who are younger, like early 20s, they just aren't on Facebook. But you got to go where you're comfortable and but you also got to go where your ideal client is, or your ideal customer, I suppose. So I think it's incredible what you're doing. So what's your Instagram handle?
I am at self_care_bestie.
Okay, awesome. And then do you have a Facebook page where we can find you with that?
That's just Self-Care Bestie.
Okay. And then your blog is selfcarebestie.com. Anywhere else?
That's basically, I am on Twitter, but I'm not as consistent as I need to be or should be on Twitter yet. But it's just Self-Care Bestie, at Self-Care Bestie on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today before we?
No, I think that's it. And just thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. This has been a great interview, and I am so excited to see you just blossom with Self-Care Bestie. And when, we'll come back and maybe in a couple months or share a little bit more, maybe you'll have a membership for talk therapists who want to.
Yeah.
I would join that.
I love it.
That. Yay. Okay, well, thank you so much, Kathleen. I'm so glad you were here, and you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to The Therapy Show. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the podcast. Thank you.